Let's spill the tea.
My fellow students, everyone was starting a company. There was an energy in the air that was so intense. I wanted to have the independence.
Does this get you in troubles sometimes?
It's a duty of my generation to make sure that we have something to pass on. I'm not drinking every day, and I'm not Gen Z, but a little bit of maybe booze, yeah?
Cheers.
So cheers.
Ready? Let's go.
What's your title, Holger?
I'm the co-founder and CEO of MetaBrewSociety.
And what is MetaBrewSociety?
MetaBrewSociety is we started as an NFT project, but now I would say we're primarily a brewery. So we started as an NFT project actually with the idea of giving out NFTs, and our NFT holders, they're getting actually, so we launched the NFT, we sold about 1,500 of them for $1,000.
Before we go in there, let's bring this to like 6 years old level. What is NFT?
Okay, NFT, non-fungible token. It's basically a digital contract that is kept on the blockchain, and the blockchain is a way to store data that is unchangeable. It's distributed on distributed ledger, so there's no central control over the data. It's distributed over kind of a network of computers, and so the blockchain basically is that new kind of technology that we believe will change a lot of industries, will change a lot of ways that we're doing business. And an NFT basically is a digital contract on the blockchain. So yeah, we started as an NFT project. Our NFT holders, so we sold the NFTs for $1,000 each. Mm-hmm. We have 1,500 NFTs out, about 750 holders. So on average, we have every NFT holder holds 2 on average. And 2 times 240 cans, that means 480 cans of beer. So you see that we have a pretty thirsty community. and now, but from the proceeds of the NFT, we acquired a brewery, pretty large brewery, northern Bavaria in Naila, located in Naila, 100,000 hectoliters of production capacity.
The new one, right?
That's the new one, yeah. That's 100,000 hectoliters, so that's quite something, yeah. It's a lot, yeah. It's about 30 million cans if you want to translate that into cans.
Okay, that is easier to understand.
Yeah, exactly. And we're a brewery, and we still have basically the NFT holder community, with which we're in regular exchange to discuss which beers we want to brew, how we package them, how they're called, and stuff like that.
Interesting. So can I understand that NFT is something, if I'm a consumer, I go online and then see, oh, there's a brewery, they are issuing this digital contract. When I buy this digital contract, which means I enter a contract with you, value 1,000 euro, dollars. Yeah, exactly. And then I get to receive beers.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, okay, I think that's really cool. And from the beginning, you're like in this digital world, what makes you start your, new venture in this intersection? Like NFT, Web3, blockchain, and then plus super traditional like industry. So what makes you...
Well, the idea to do something in the blockchain space or in the NFT space was first, to be honest. Yeah. So we're 7 founders, and we've known each other for quite a while. And we sat together late 2021, and we all had made a lot of experience in the blockchain space and also in the NFT space. Had some gains and we had some losses. And I think in 2021 we had some gains on crypto, but we had some losses on NFTs because there were a lot of projects that kind of, if you look back, it was pretty clear they were rug pulls. But at the time, there was all this hype and all the kind of FOMO, and so everyone was doing something in NFTs. And we sat together over a couple of beers and we started thinking, what can we do in the NFT space? So where's the space going to develop? And we were pretty sure that kind of the whole thing, community and Web3, and there's more than just PFP projects. Yeah. So this is a new way of doing business. And we said, kind of, how can we contribute something to the development of this industry? How can we be a first mover in that industry? So Web 1, actually, I stood at the sidelines and watched it. Web 2, I kind of I was not quite there for the start, but I was in basically pretty early.
Can I conclude your age?
Yeah, so thanks for the 50 plus before. Cheers. Little insider. Yeah, I was briefed why I do that at the age of 50 plus. No, I'm not 50 plus, but I'm pretty close.
Cheers.
So cheers.
Eye on eye, in case you don't know that in Germany, in Europe, basically, you need to cheers with eye contact, right? Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you Google online. But okay, keep going.
Right. So where was I? No, so we were thinking about kind of what can we do to basically kind of be a first mover in Web3 in that new way of community-based marketing in that space. I have a background in the last 10, 15 years in cosmetics, so kind of everyone was kind of throwing up ideas, and cosmetics was clear wasn't a very good fit because Web3, kind of mostly male, mostly young, so cosmetics is not the perfect fit. So then suddenly the idea was on the table, so let's buy a brewery. And,
just all of a sudden.
Just all of a sudden. So
while drinking beer?
While drinking beer.
Okay, obviously. Keep going.
So, and kind of we found out that evening that it was kind of the childhood dream of every single one of us to kind of once own a brewery. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, I mean, this is the opportunity. Now let's do it. And so next morning, sober, we called each other again and said, do you remember what we said last night? And do we still think it's a good idea? Yeah. And we still thought it's a good idea, actually. So we started kind of playing around with ideas, kind of would we make our NFT holders shareholders of the brewery, and then we found out we had basically a legal concept written, we had a tax concept written, and we found out it won't work because otherwise kind of it's an emission, so we have to go through financial regulation, which makes it kind of very, very cumbersome and very expensive. So we came up with the idea basically free beer for life. Yeah, so you buy an NFT and you're not a shareholder, but you're getting free beer for life.
Yeah.
And then we had to think tax-wise how to do it, because if it would be something like dividends on your investment, then it would be taxed. Every dividend would be taxed by cheers. By 30%. Would be taxed by 30%. So we said we define it basically as a gift certificate. So you buy it now, and then you get kind of over time, you get through your gift certificate, you basically get the beer. And the idea is now, or how we realized it is, people, they bought the NFT. They're part of the community. We have events once in a while, but the main utility basically is you get 240 cans of beer per year as an NFT holder, and we have some NFT holders, like on average it's 2, so you get 480 cans. We have some that have 3, 4, or 5 NFTs, and we have some that have 1 and basically say I can't drink all the beer, so it's pretty mixed. But that's the idea. So we're a brewery. That started as an NFT project. Our NFT holders get free beer for life. So as long as we exist, we ship free beer to our holders, 240 cans per year. Yeah. And that's who we are. But now we have that big brewery, and we want to utilize that brewery. So now we're entering actually the beer market, and we want to be a successful brewery. That has its roots in Web3 and in NFTs, but we just want to be a successful beer and beverage company.
Can you tell me like the demography of your consumers? Because if you think about beer industry in Germany especially, you have this 100 years old brands and stuff, Is it hard to compete?
It is. I mean, in general, I would say the beer market in Germany is very difficult. It's very difficult in a way that very few players in that industry make money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it has been an industry that has been around forever, and there's a lot of substance, and a lot of the breweries that have been kind of given on generation by generation, and they have been around for centuries. Centuries, really, centuries, yeah. They're eating into their substance. So they're not making money, but there's still enough substance so that they can still exist, but they're eating into their substance. And that's what we see all around. So there are few, like the national, international brands that basically consolidated the market and that they're everywhere. And but they still also, particularly in Germany, they still rule by price. Yeah. So if you go to the supermarket or the beverage store and you find kind of this week's special brand XY for $8.99 a case. Yeah. $8.99 a case, nobody makes money. It's absolutely impossible to make money. Yeah. So, but they basically kill the market. And the smaller the local breweries, their markets get smaller and smaller because the large brands, they're everywhere. Yeah. So they get smaller and smaller, and people are not willing to pay a high premium for a local beer. Yeah, which is basically the problem that in this market almost nobody makes money. The average beer customer, I mean, there is the traditional beer customer that's between, let's say, 50 and 100 years old, that has been drinking beer all their lives. But there is also the younger generation that is drinking beer more consciously. The alcohol consumption of the younger generation is lower than it used to be for the older generations. Yeah, so less alcohol is being drunk in urban areas. We have approaches for that, and one of them is kind of, I have that here, the BPA Light, which is it's a BPA, a pale ale. We call it Bavarian Pale Ale, BPA. It has only 2.5% in alcohol. Yeah, so it's half the alcohol of a normal beer, but it has full taste. Yeah, so that's the approach that we want to target, that younger generation that is more conscious on drinking alcohol. It's quite known by now that alcohol is not healthy. Yeah, and there's some consciousness about that, but still there's also the idea of having fun and having a great taste and having kind of a little bit of maybe booze, yeah. So this is the idea of having a beer that is lighter, only 2.5% alcohol. As of this month, we also have a non-alcoholic beer, 0.0%, and we're actually the only non-industrial brewery in Germany. Industrial, I mean really kind of the big national brands. We're the only non-industrial brewery in Germany that has a non-alcoholic beer 0.0. Because the other small or medium-sized breweries, when they do non-alcoholic, they brew smaller 0.5, but we have 0.0. And we're really kind of the only non-industrial brewery that does the 0.0.
That's so funny because my co-founder you just met, like Rene, he doesn't drink at all, so like when he goes to a restaurant but still want to be socialized, he kind of need to order something, right? Because everybody's drinking beers and stuff. And then but everything like in the market right now, in a restaurant, it's always like 0.05%. And then he rejected it, So I think that is actually quite a big kind of step you are taking?
I mean, there are few products out there. I mean, so the large brands, you all know them. They all have a 0.0. There's typically no local 0.0, and there's typically no 0.0 that taste-wise caters a not fully mainstream market, because kind of the volume brands, the taste of their beers needs to be kind of fully on mainstream, because otherwise the volume's not there. So kind of our beer, it goes a little bit more towards the craft beer, the non-alcohol, the 0.0. It's a little bit more crafty, so it's a little bit more hoppy. It's a little bit more intense in taste. Yeah, so it's not that completely light in taste, almost watery. Type of beer 0.0. We take it a little bit more with intensity, and we believe that this also for us actually is the biggest opportunity in the market. So we do alcoholic beers, and we believe we have to do them, particularly in the early days now, because that's the traditional beer market, and we're in northern Bavaria, and we're serving a local market. Yeah, we are the local brewery over there. So if we say only 0.0, we have no customers there.
That is so true.
So we need to do it to start. We need to, and to serve that local market, we need to do the traditional beers.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
However, we believe that the big opportunity lies in the 0.0.
So next month you will launch this 0.0%. You know what's interesting, because I once listened to a podcast from the head of science from Hinge. You know Hinge?
No.
It's a dating app. It's a dating app. It's an app designed to be deleted. Basically, they want to match people just really going on a real date, not like swiping and stuff. And anyhow, so there was a podcast from her, and then she said like right now younger generation, especially like Gen Z and late millennial, they tend to go on a date, like sober date. They would rather go on like coffee or like whatever, mocktails and stuff. So I do think like younger generation is I don't know, the target market, just like marketing there. But anyhow, do you drink non-alcoholic beer as well? Or
I do, yeah. I mean, I also drink the alcoholic beers.
To
be very honest. And I do like them all beers we do. But to be honest, I mean, I'm not drinking every day. It's just kind of in a normal professional life. I mean, you can't drink every day.
You can't. You really cannot. Yeah.
It's I mean, you're not as fit next morning. Stuff. Yeah. So it's more a Friday evening, Saturday evening, something. Saturday afternoon, friends are over, and you have a kind of glass of wine, or you have some beers, etc. Or you're in the brewery, and we want to taste from the tank. It's a different thing. But it's. I mean, these times are over. Our lifestyle is. I mean, I'm doing emails till midnight, and the next morning starts kind of early on. So there is not really the time to kind of switch everything off, sit down, relax, and then kind of have a couple of beers and still kind of function in the next morning. So. Doesn't work. I do drink, but most of the time I'm non-alcoholic. So also out of my own interest, I have a high interest in a good non-alcoholic beer, because when tasting these 0.0 beers in the market, I'm mostly all of the time I'm pretty disappointed. So I say, I mean, as good as this beer, you can also drink water, because the difference tastes not that great. And so kind of something that really has a good and strong taste, I believe personally from my own consumption, has a big opportunity in the market.
Okay, so like before we enter the next agenda,
and I'm not Gen Z, but
my sad was, I mean, like I'm almost Gen Z. Like if I'm born 1 year later, then I'll be Gen Z. But I feel like a boomer, so to say. But anyhow, I want to ask you that there's I don't know if that is a myth or not. They say non-alcoholic beer actually has health benefit because of the mineral. Do you have any take on this, or?
There are lots of studies actually. So we're just about to ship beer to a US partner, supplements in the beer actually for a special purpose. I'm not saying it yet because we're going to launch it later this year. So there are going to be additional health supplements. What they did actually is they did some research for studies that are readily available for actually health benefits of non-alcoholic beer. And there are a number of studies, you can Google them and you'll find them. There are a number of studies out there that actually link the health benefit of non-alcoholic beer with the flavonoids in the hops.
What is that?
Flavonoids is just bioactive substances, plant-based substances. Flavonoids are like plant-based hormones or plant hormones.
Yeah. Good ones.
Good ones, yeah, absolutely. If you read these studies, the benefits of the non-alcoholic beer are linked to the flavonoids, so the kind of biohormones in the hops, which has a lot of them. So there's the same effect in alcoholic beer, because hops also is in alcoholic beer. Yeah. But first, you're not allowed to connect health claims to a beer or to a drink that contains alcohol. And the second thing is, it's pretty obvious that because the alcohol has a negative health effect, that basically it overshadows the positive effect you might draw from the flavonoids in the hops. So it's, but yes, there are a number of studies that link positive health effects to non-alcoholic.
Interesting. Then in the end of the year, we will get you on this podcast again and then talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure, for sure. We're about to launch a number of non-alcoholic beers with added benefits. As a beer brand, we're going to market that non-alcoholic beer 0.0 full stop will be a brand.
Yeah.
But we're currently reaching out for partners that would want to add some additional health benefits. Yeah. Well, we are the producer. So we have our non-alcoholic beer as a base recipe, and then we add these additional benefit supplements to the beer, and we want to do that with partners. We can't do everything our own, but the idea is basically to have that with partner. And I have one partner in the United States. They're currently in the exploration phase for this, so they've tasted the beer, they love it, and so we're waiting for they're actually going to be here in late April, and hopefully we're going to close a deal then for having our non-alcoholic beer as the basis for their kind of supplement. So it's a liquid supplement then.
Interesting. So where did you grow up? Like what kind of early context I need to understand about you? Because I know you have involved in 15 plus different companies in your life, and then right now you're taking on this journey. So like, can I understand where did you grow up, and then what kind of environment it was?
I was born in Kaiserslautern, which is a town in the southwest of Germany, pretty close to the French border.
Okay.
Actually, pretty close to a wine region. But Kaiserslautern itself is more kind of beer country.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm the only child of my parents. My parents are both state employed. So maximum security, maximum safety security environment, and I was different. So I was.
And I was just different.
I've been a risk taker from early on. So I just like to kind of do things differently, explore them, and yeah, I mean it was pretty clear to me. I had one employment. So after finishing university, actually I had one employment, and after less than 3 years, actually, I quit and I became an entrepreneur. And it was pretty clear to me that I wanted to have the experience, but I couldn't stand it longer.
Why?
So after just that kind of that outside control, that kind of someone else tells you what to do.
Yeah.
And even if sometimes you think he or she's wrong or he or she's an idiot, you still have to do what they say. Yeah. So I couldn't deal with that. Yeah. So that was one thing. So kind of being able to decide independently and decide on my own what I want to do and what I think's right, and take the full consequence of it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and it's substantially wrong then, and it's existentially wrong then, and if I'm right, I'm right. So kind of that was the decision, and that was the consequence I wanted to take, and that's basically how it started. I mean, it probably started. I spent a year during my studies. I spent a year in California, in Silicon Valley.
Which year?
1998, 1999.
How old were you?
23.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm born 1975. It was the heydays of the new economy. So it was, and I was at Stanford University. So in the heart of the Silicon Valley. Yeah. And kind of my fellow students, like everyone was starting a company. Everyone, yeah. So it was like there was an energy in the air that was so intense. So everyone was thinking about. So internet was brand new. It was just kind of the big dreams, and everyone thought kind of you can do something out of a garage basically. And it was these early days, yeah. So it was the early days of Google, the early days of Facebook. 1998, you just barely heard of Google, yeah? So it was really, really early. Amazon, really the early days. Hewlett-Packard was the big player back then.
What?
Hewlett-Packard.
What is that?
HP.
Okay.
Was the big player back then. So they had their big headquarters in the Silicon Valley already. I mean, Apple was around, etc. Microsoft was around, even though they're headquartered in Seattle, but they were around in Silicon Valley. But these were the companies that were around, and all the big companies that we know today, Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc. They were startups at that time, and that was the time where it was everyone was starting a company. Everyone. I caught the virus, so
obviously
it was pretty clear to me that that's the lifestyle that I want to have, and not in terms of kind of becoming rich and kind of fancy cars, stuff like that. I wanted to have the independence. The kind of seeing the impact of what I do and the work I do every day, And so when I was employed, I had many mornings when I got up and I said, oh, how many days till Friday? Yeah, or how many days till Saturday? Since the day I started my first own business, I've never, once again, I had this thought,
nightmare episode.
Exactly,
right?
this thought, because every morning I get up and it's in my hands what I make out of that day. That's how I became an entrepreneur, basically.
So, like when you were a kid, like child, did you already kind of having these early days symptoms that you want to be an entrepreneur?
I was trading books with my fellow students, so I was buying, like when there was a book on sale or something like that, I was buying it and I was reselling it to kind of my fellow my classmates, basically.
Really?
Kind of these were the small early things. So I was looking for ways of arbitrage already at a school age, but I mean there are many who do that, but I was really looking out for opportunities back then in the traditional environment. Yeah, with kind of my parents probably would have loved to see me become a teacher or a professor or politician or whatever. Yeah, doctor. That was not my way to go.
Yeah, because I rarely see any successful entrepreneurs like that I know personally, or like anybody who don't know, I just listen to the podcast of theirs. I rarely see any successful entrepreneurs without this, like, they want to have this, they are looking for something, something's missing. And then what was missing in your life? I just want to understand that.
The primary thing that's driving me is to, it's that feeling of independence. So I want to be.
Since a kid, or?
Since a kid, yeah.
Why?
I had problems with authority, so I didn't like authority. I didn't like people. As I said before, people who I thought they're idiots, but they can tell me what to do. I kind of completely hated that from teachers, whatever. I hated that. I think that's a big driver, the complete independence, so that you can basically do what you want and you're responsible for yourself and what you do. So you have no one who can tell you what to do. That's basically one thing. The other thing is, I always like change.
Yeah.
So if something is really, really kind of steady state going, I'm losing interest. And I've had that in business of mine, where if something basically kind of reaches a certain state and it goes steady state and it's basically operational and day-to-day business, it's better I take someone else in to do it, because that's not what I like to do. That's not what I'm good at. Maybe I lack structure, or I lack discipline for that, but it excites me if every day is different from the day before. So I want a new challenge every day. I want something exciting, something new, some problems to solve, some things to explore. That's what drives me.
Okay.
Yeah. So the kind of the independence and trying out new things, change, doing things differently, exploring new avenues, and that's also MetaBrewSociety. We're trying to basically take on an old industry and think it completely upside down, think it differently.
Does this get you in troubles sometimes?
Does it get me in trouble? Trouble is the wrong word. I mean, yes, there's situations where I maybe go too far.
Yeah.
And there's situations where, for example, like 3 years ago, I lost my driver's license because I was speeding too frequently.
Yeah.
So I think for the long distances, I typically go by car, and how often I do that, I think it was pretty decent still. But I mean, if you have like 8 points in Germany, you lose your driver's license.
Yeah.
And then to regain your driver's license, you have to do something that's called MPU, medical psychological assessment, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a translation. So, and you're being assessed about your ability to work within a given set of rules, basically.
Okay. How was the outcome?
And I was not. I mean, so I mean, the thing is, you have to work within that system. Yeah, you won't regain your driver's license until you accept that system, which is fine. I mean, it's a certain outcome, and I can deal with that. But what doesn't make a lot of sense is that kind of if in the middle of the night, kind of 3 lanes on the Autobahn, everything's empty, and there's 100 speed limit. Yeah, and if you go 115, which is not that much, I mean, you get a point, and if you do that 8 times, you're over 5 years. If you do that 8 times over 5 years, which is just kind of once every 9 months, you lose your driver's license, which I think is pretty heavy. So, but you know, the thing is that what they tell you is if you regularly kind of get caught for speeding, you have problems accepting rules. Because it says 100, and you question that. You question the situation whether it's meaningful. So as a citizen, you're not supposed to do that. What I had to learn also through my kind of various adventures is make sure you're selecting the right investors. You're selecting investors with the right mindset and with the right way to deal with decisions, and you have investors that you personally connect with, that you have that you can develop a trust-based relationship, and that you can connect with.
Are you talking about this from the investor angle or from the founder angle? Because I know you're both. Okay, so why is that?
If you have very different approaches to things, it can go wrong. I think it's important to share a set of values, and it's important to share a way of dealing with each other when things don't work out, when things are not a success. Money's lost or money's about to be lost. This is the situation where you have to make sure that you can deal with people still if everything goes down the drain, and vice versa. That you can expect that they still deal with you in a decent manner if things go down.
What kind of situation people might face if they match with wrongfully mindset investor or founder? What kind of situation will they end up?
It can become pretty personal. I had the situation myself that I got sued after an investment got wrong. Or basically, so it went wrong, and afterwards they sued. I had given them kind of the wrong information on kind of when they entered the business. I mean, I won that lawsuit, but it still cost a lot of money
and time.
which you don't want to go through. There are many investors that are friendly as long as times are good, that show you a different face when times are bad. And I think what you have to make sure is that you can develop the right feeling for people, a filter to get on board the right people with the right mindset, to try to look through how's that person gonna behave if things go wrong.
How do you prospect entrepreneurs, or how do you prospect founder investors? I
personally rely in the meanwhile on just gut feeling. Personal feeling. I mean, also, let's say, as an investor, I think it's important to have the right feeling about a person.
Yeah.
And typically, your gut tells you whether a person is an asshole or not. I'm relying on intuition a lot in business, and since I do that, I have taken few fundamentally wrong decisions. When I was more led by analytics, so kind of situation, and they fit in, they have the right amount of money, they have the right amount of experience. It doesn't feel quite right, but it seems to fit.
Yeah.
It's guarantee for disaster. If it doesn't feel right in the beginning, it's going to get worse.
I had a few lessons too.
It's going to get worse. If you don't have 100% good feeling in the beginning, don't do it. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, totally. Personal stories, but that is the episode for next time. Talking about making career change or like life change, like a lot of people say, like Gen Z, they are very self-aware in terms of what they want and what they don't want in in the workforce, in the working environment, in life in general. I bet you have been interviewed some so far. And then how do you feel like the statement? Because I'm in between,
Yeah.
So what do you see the future generations?
I don't think there is the Gen Z. I mean, like in my generation, you have such and you have such. I mean, you always have them. I mean, there's probably a higher chance of finding people in that generation that put lifestyle ahead of job, business, etc. And I think that works in certain positions. They're dedicated and doing their stuff and want to learn, and it's great. What I experienced also is that people don't want to take opportunities to make careers. If you give someone a pretty basically open field and say, kind of explore this, I mean, make this your own, do whatever you like with it. This is your opportunity. Nothing comes out of it because they're not wanting to take the initiative. That's something that I've been experiencing in recent years very, very often, that even if you give people an opportunity, they don't grab them. Or if you offer someone, you can have that type of responsibility, but then you need to drive it. You need to own it. You need to be the person who is the energy force behind it. Very often, this energy is not there. I don't know. I can't explain it. If you tell them, this is your job, you have to do this, and you tell them in the morning, do this today, please. In the evening, you ask them, have you done this today? This works pretty well. I even had situations, I asked someone, you've done a pretty good job here. Would you want to lead the team, or would you want to lead a certain effort or a project or something? And they say no. This is something that the world I come from, unbelievable, impossible. Yeah, I mean, you get an opportunity, you're not grabbing it, you don't want to grab it. That's something I can't understand. Work attitude probably is a little bit different. The likeliness that someone operates within a given frame is higher than someone wanting to take an opportunity. That's my experience with that kind of really young generation. I may not have a representative sample. That's my experience. Incredibly enough, and I don't want to generalize, but the people I have worked with, they don't seem to want to make a career. They want to work within a defined setup, but make sure they can go home at 5.
That is so interesting, because almost all the younger generation I've met so far, they are like so ambitious, like the risk they are willing to take is enormous.
Then I'm probably not fishing in the correct pool.
Where did you recruit them? Share with me later. I wouldn't do that. Okay.
Maybe I'm in the wrong environment, and maybe because I'm a dinosaur.
No, but that is so interesting. That is a really interesting angle anyhow,
I've not had many employees from that generation. Well, I would say there was drive, intrinsic motivation, the will for a career. That's rather people a little bit older. May also be a thing of age, but again, I don't have a representative sample of that pool, but the experience we've recently made in this business with Gen Z is rather disappointing.
It's interesting because if you look at those major broadcasting companies such as Forbes or like Times, they always put this kind of experience as a headline, kind of like generalize the entire younger generation. And probably it's me, I'm making different, experience. And talking about like younger generation, and
maybe we're not as a small or relatively small company, maybe we're not getting the right job applications from the right people. Yeah, I mean, it's probably also a phenomenon that just the labor market is tighter than it used to be, and maybe there are fewer highly qualified, energetic people from that generation left to work with kind of smaller companies. Yeah, because when the bigger companies, they pay the more attractive salaries, they offer more reliable career paths. It's a different setting, and maybe we're just not getting the right quality applications. But again, these are the few data points that we've made.
So talking about like future generation, talking about even future, you are in a certain life stage right now. Let's say you are in the in the standpoint that you are going to build something for the future based on your purpose. So I also see sustainability is on the agenda of various brands of yours, invested or whatever has different angle. Why is that? What's the reason?
And it's pretty clear that we can't, as humans, we can't go on like we've done for the last 50 years or 70 years or 80 or 100. I think it's pretty clear that we have to change some things, and it makes sense. Business models that do have that sustainability aspect, they have a higher chance of succeeding in the next years or decades than those who have not. It's a duty of my generation to make sure that we have something to pass on to our kids and grandkids. And at the same time, I do think that the likeliness that the business is going to be successful if they embrace sustainability principles is higher.
Any of your brands has any of those benefit from contributing to sustainability, or?
This is important as a soft factor. So people look at kind of how are things packaged. We get increasingly asked these questions. So it's not so much that you print on the can that carbon neutral or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not so much that. It's more like when people ask, you have an answer. So it's more like hygiene factor, kind of. It doesn't need to be at the forefront of the business model. But I think a brand that doesn't think about it nowadays has no future.
Yeah.
Because people shop more consciously, and which I think is also kind of Gen Z that we just talked about. I mean, they shop more consciously, and I think it's a good thing that they shop more consciously. I think that brands that don't want to have anything to do with the concept of sustainability, they will have a very hard time to get into the future unless they focus on that kind of part of society that basically say, we don't care.
Yeah, so there is a research has done by Unilever, basically. So they have different portfolio companies, right? Many, like hundreds even. So they divided all the companies into two groups. One is environmental conscious company like Ben & Jerry, for instance, those kind of group. Another one is no sustainability on the agenda. And then they track them for 5 years. And then they see the profitability, resilience go through pandemic. The Ben & Jerry part is outgrowth so much than the one who, didn't implement it. So Unilever, they turn around and then told this group of companies saying, hey, you need to right now start this right now. Otherwise, we are not discussing 2050 if you will be there, if you'll be profitable, right? We are talking about if you are carbon neutral or are you contributing to the world? That is what people will care in 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously in some certain countries, unfortunately, they are in a really bad place, right, in terms of climate refugees and stuff. I'm coming from Taiwan. Taiwan is a small island, who knows, I will end up in a couple of years, or my kids. I don't even know if I want to have kids because I don't know if they can survive by just by their own.
I have 5, so I'm convinced that it goes on. So, and I have a lot of faith in humanity.
Yeah.
And I personally also believe that the situation is difficult, and climate change and all these kind of things worries me more than that currently is what happens to democracy in a number of countries. But I believe in science and in technology, and I believe that advances in technology will be able to contribute strongly in solving these issues. That's why I also believe that banning things or just doing the forbidding game isn't solving the problem, because we can't go back into caves and living on trees. It won't work. And human nature is, as soon as you explain people to cut on their general wealth and on the way what makes life nice and easy and relaxing and stuff like that, it's not human nature to basically cut on something. I think the solution to that comes from technology advancements rather than trying to forbid things. On the other hand, it's important, or it would be important, to invest more in advancing technology to trying to solve that problem than in trying to, we can't continue with carbon emission like we do, but there's a certain trade-off where cutting more and more doesn't have additional benefit. Rather try to advance technology so that we can solve it that way. My core belief is that humanity is going to make it, and all the technologies that we're seeing right now, we're in an exponential age, right? So within the next 10 years, we may have solved the problem. You don't know. I mean, AI and robotics and all the advances we're making there, I think there is the chance with that exponential development that we will be able to solve it. And I believe that we will be able to solve it. At the same time, absolutely, everyone has to be conscious about consumption, but I'm not believing in that kind of cutting at every cost and forbidding and stuff like that.
I think for all the companies, like they need to targeting on two direction, right? One is just consumption-wise speaking, cutting down, but there's a limit. Let's just embrace it. There's a limit. But on the other hand, how can we also preserve our livable environment for the next few years? Because a company needs to targeting on both. Otherwise,
as I said, I think that there needs to be a balance. Yeah, we won't get there by just cutting emissions. We won't get there. I believe we will get there in the combination of being conscious about emissions and about waste and about everything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, embracing technology advancements to basically turn this around. I mean, if we can suck carbon dioxide out of the air in an industrial scale, we solve the problem faster than just slowing down emissions. It needs to go hand in hand, and one doesn't work without the other.
I think humanity united is really important, and I do believe also the power of how we can make the change, because if you look at JFK, he made a speech in New York City back then saying like, okay, I'm going to send people to the Mars or like to the moon, I forgot which one. And then at that point, the technology wasn't even there at all, single one. Exactly. And then 2 years after, half of the technology were there. And then 5 years after, we really sent people to the space.
Exactly.
How crazy it is, right?
And I think there's a lot of business model and a lot of wealth creation is coming out of developing these technologies.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a completely new industry. I think that ultimately, the problem solving will lie in technology advancement rather than just cutting.
Yeah.
Not saying that we should continue like we do, so it needs to go hand in hand, but I think that the solution will come from technology.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, right? Yeah. Like 2 days ago, I met a guy, and then this guy told me he doesn't believe in sustainability because it's not profitable, it's not scalable, and then technology at the moment, renewable technology, is just too costly. I say, yes, I agree with you, but if you don't invest right now to R&D, I mean, where's the outcome? But there was a huge debate.
Yeah, but it always needs some visionaries who take the first step, and then the others will follow. It needs some visionaries who go that first step and break some grounds and move there, and then the herd will follow.
Can I ask you a personal question? Mm-hmm. Why do you collab with Founder Planet?
This is something that we said from the very beginning, that for MetaBrewSociety, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can do the best of being also a sustainable company. And we have that huge brewery, and it's heated by gas. And we don't have the financial freedom yet to basically switch completely to renewables. But as soon as we have, this is going to be the first thing that we do. We're currently looking into kind of covering the roof with photovoltaics as a first step, etc. And the brewery is pretty awesome for that, because we need cooling all the time. So we have a pretty steady load, but 24/7, 365. So photovoltaics would be awesome. But from the very beginning, we also looked into how do we want to package our goods so that we minimize footprint. And we're shipping worldwide because we're believing in markets as such. At the same time, when shipping worldwide, we don't want to cause additional harm, basically. So the first thing is decision for the can. May not be kind of the first thing someone thinks about when thinking about sustainable packaging. But the can, in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of sustainability, is the much better packaging than a bottle, because the can weighs a few grams. The bottle is like a few hundred grams. The can has about kind of 99 point something percent recycling. The bottle, kind of, if you break it down, so the bottle needs much higher energy during recycling. So glass has a much higher melting point than aluminum. So much higher energy consumption. And if you take into account the cycles that you get out of glass, in the end, whenever there's a certain minimum distance, and according to our calculation, it's about 30 kilometers, everything further than 30 kilometers away from the production site, the can is the better packaging, carbon-wise, carbon footprint-wise. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus the recycling quote, the recycling percentage on aluminum is higher than on glass, and the energy that goes in is smaller. So it's a conscious decision to go for the very local market. We have glass in these crates. For everything kind of that is further away than 30 kilometers from the brewery, we ship in cans. That's the first. And the next thing is, how can we kind of offset the carbon that we emit during the through the shipping? And then basically we met and found the plan that actually just fit. I mean, it was an NFT project, so it was easy to explain to our community. It was basically doing the job of offsetting the emissions. So it kind of was a perfect fit. So therefore we said, I mean, this is kind of, it fits in like invented for us, basically. So that's the reason why we did that. But that comes out of the idea that we want to be as much carbon neutral as we can. I have a lot of talks where I talk about NFTs or about doing something new in the brewing industry, etc. Every single talk I give, the question comes, what do you do for sustainability? Every single one. It would be pretty silly if I wouldn't have an answer for that. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
Do you want to know why I asked this?
Why?
Because like from this episode, I wanted to have a closing tradition. Like I will ask ChatGPT, if you are a podcaster, Holger Mannweiler will be your guest. Based on your research on him on the internet, what kind of a question will curious you to ask him? And this question actually comes the second one.
Okay.
It's like, so MetaBrewSociety is focusing on sustainability in the intersection of, beer, tech, and sustainability. How do you navigate this? And then that's the ChatGPT answer. And then I think you are doing a kind of right marketing or right approach there. Otherwise, I don't think AI nowadays can get the information so fast. So the first question, of course, was about your entrepreneurial journey, 15 plus company and stuff. But that was a good kind of initiative, I would say, and then proven by AI. Thank you, Holger, for being here today with us. There were a lot of takeaways, especially in terms of dating and in terms of entrepreneurial kind of spirit, and then taking the leaps and stuff. I think a lot of people can take a lot of lessons out from this conversation. Even just one, I think they can change their mindset, and a lot of change can make in their life. So thank you so much. You are doing a good job.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening, and you can leave your comment below, ask the questions, and I will pick one of the best questions and then add as the guest without you knowing who is the guest you are going to ask the question to. So thank you for listening.